The Bison track team wins again. Much more in a busy weekend for NDSU. The Thunder and the Wolves are set, and Dickinson High has a new nickname. A new week starts on Hot Mic now.
Hot Mic with Dom Izzo.
Really? Really, Dom?
No. I like what Dom's doing.
Okay.
Dom Izzo.
Jeez, come on, Dom. What do you think I am, a magician?
Yeah, I'm fired up, Dom. What else could I say?
Absolutely. It was great to get on the field, and then Dom came up to me, and I'm trying to walk away from me. I just wanted to enjoy myself out there.
Hot Mic.
Great job.
There's got to be some kind of intelligent question about something.
Coach Dom Izzo, WDAY in Fargo, North Dakota.
Can you give me a layup or something?
Hot Mic. Presented by Northwestern Mutual.
That program is second to none.
On the networks of WDAY.
You know, if it's not about sports, I find it very hard to concentrate.
Here's Dom Izzo. Dom Izzo.
Good Monday morning. Welcome to the same old edition of Hot Mic on WDAY Extra. KSFL, good morning in Sioux Falls, KNBN in Rapid City, and Inforum.com. 19th day of May. Happy Monday, everybody. New week, ready to rock and roll. We got to get the rain out here. It's a big night tonight. The last couple of days been busy at our house. So yesterday, we are a month out from the Jackman's actual birthday, but we had his first school party birthday yesterday. Big deal. Everything went great. That was another level of parenthood now I've ascended into now to actually take care of other people's kids. That was a deal. But everything came out okay. So that was yesterday. Tonight is supposed to be opening night of the T-ball season in Moorhead. And I'm looking at my Storm Tracker app, and prognosis is negative right now. Not looking great for after like 3 o'clock. So if there's any way we can carve out a 2-hour window between 6 o'clock and 8 o'clock tonight, that would be great because the kiddo is very excited about starting up his second year of T-ball. So if we can make that happen, I've been asked to coach again, which that went to some acclaim last year. So hopefully we get some clear skies tonight and are able to do that. Great to be back with everyone on a Monday. Hope you all had a great weekend. We sent Wheel off in style on Friday. If you missed our newscast, I highly encourage you to go back and check it out on WDAY Plus at Inforum.com. It was great. If we got Wallivan to choke up, then we know it was a big deal, which happened. That got me on Friday. And then we had a really nice send-off for Wheel Friday night. It was good stuff. Got to see some people I haven't seen in a while. We had a half of the old WDAY weekend news team on hand. Myself and Rob Kolpack were there. Way back when, that was the weather and sports. We were the bookends way back in 2007 at WDAY. It's good stuff. And Wheels doesn't have to worry about forecasting anything today. Good for him. We got a lot to get to. We finally now know who the Timberwolves are going to play in the Western Conference Finals, which we don't have to wait around. Start tomorrow night. I do have an issue with that. And Aaron Gordon, the great player for the Nuggets, said it after Game 7 yesterday. It may come across as sour grapes, but I agree with the fact that when we have as many games as we do in the first round, it's spaced out as crazily as it is. Then we get to this round, and we're playing every other day. Like, it should be the other way around. Can we play every other day in the first round and then space it out as we go further along? Because now it's become a war of attrition. The Nuggets went through it. The Warriors went through it. The Celtics went through it. If you have your best guys still playing, you got a heck of a chance to win the NBA championship, which we'll show you in just a moment. We'll also recap, as I mentioned in our show tease, the Summit League Track Championships were held this weekend in Vermilion. They were plagued by the weather, much like everything was locally. The Bison women continue their dominance in track, and UND had a really nice weekend as well, which we'll get to in just a little bit. But when we left you on Friday, the Twins had won 11 games in a row. Pretty nice win streak. They decided to curb stop the Brewers Friday and Saturday, not allowing any runs to score. So I tweeted out Saturday, apparently the Twins aren't going to lose again. So they took a 13-game win streak second longest in franchise history, into their finale yesterday against Milwaukee. And evidently, they're not going to win the rest of their games this season. They fell behind 3-0. Sal Frelick will get his second hit of the game. He contributed a couple of RBIs. This makes it a 4-0 Milwaukee lead on Zebby Matthews. Royce Lewis finally slugs his first home run. Seems like his hitting's starting to come around after a brutal 0-for-34 start. Makes it a 4-1 Minnesota lead. Then we see some Lewis defense in the field. That's a great barehanded play there in the fourth inning from the superstar there. It's a 4-1 game in the seventh when Brooks Lee laces a base hit to left to score Trevor Larnach. Twins get within 2 at 4-2 in the seventh inning. So we go down to the top of the eighth. Lewis up at the plate. This is the game changer of the game. Look at this catch from Jackson Chourio. That is unbelievable. Goes over the wall to Chourio to make a phenomenal catch. He is the Brewers superstar. We saw it last year. Lewis with a hat tip there as he well earned it to keep it a 4. That would have tied the game. He robbed it there. It's a 5-2 score. Trevor McGill in. Why can't the Mets find players like him? He gets the final out of the game. A lot of excitement there for a rare Sunday win for the Brewers as they beat Minnesota 5-2 to avoid the sweep and avoid a 14th consecutive win for the Minnesota Twins as their win streak is snapped at 13 in a row. First time that the Twins have lost a baseball game. You got to go back a way. The last time they lost a game was back on May the 2nd. It's May 19th. That is a long time. Zebby Matthews was called up to start. Goes just 3 innings as he takes the loss, and Milwaukee avoids getting swept there. Nice day at the plate for Lewis. Could have been even better, but Jackson Chourio makes the big play to keep that one as a 4-2 score. Brewers got some insurance run there in the 8th. So, when they last lost, the Twins were sitting in 4th place in the American League Central. As you wake up today on Monday, May 19th, the Twins now are in 2nd place. Just a half game ahead of Cleveland and Kansas City. They're actually even with the Guardians of the loss column and a game up on the Royals. So finally they made some movement, but boy, it is a tight deal here. Again, as Corey Provis pointed out on the show on Friday, if the playoffs started today, and I know they don't, 4 American League Central teams would be in the postseason now. Twins open up a homestand tonight. It's right back into the grind with Cleveland. The Guardians come to town for what's going to be a fun series here. Logan Allen will be starting for Cleveland. Bailey Ober will start tonight for the Twins. Ober's been really good after being rocked early. Ober with a mark of 4-1 ERA, just north of 3.5. 6:30 first pitch at Target Field for that one tonight, as we'll see if Minnesota can start a new win streak. Last year they won 12 in a row, and then it was a roller coaster ride the rest of the way. Let's see if they can even things out as we are near Memorial Day, and that's always the fence post if you're in it or not. You know, we've seen some teams, Colorado's obviously out of it. Baltimore fired its manager over the weekend, and the Twins just swept through the Orioles. They went unbeaten against Baltimore. They fired their manager. Pittsburgh's fired its manager. There are teams that already said they cut the cord on 2025, and there are more that probably already thought they didn't have a chance, but that's normally the designated mark if you're in it or not, is Memorial Day, which is, of course, a week from today. All right, now to hoops. And when we left you, we knew we were going to have a Game 7 in the Western Conference semifinals after Denver won Game 6 on Thursday night. The Knicks won. We'll get to that. That was fun to watch Friday night as they routed Boston. So we had one Game 7, and that was in Oklahoma City yesterday between the Thunder and Denver. Winner gets the Wolves, and best part about it, since how the seeds broke down, the winner of this game would host in the Western Conference Finals. Denver, Aaron Gordon was diagnosed with a grade 2 hamstring injury before the game, and yet started and was great. Denver ran out to a 10-point lead to start this game, but it seemed like that was all adrenaline because after that, Oklahoma City took Jalen Williams was phenomenal. He was awful in Game 6. He was great. Just in the second quarter alone, he had 17 points in the second quarter and took over this game. And this is what you got to worry about if you're a Wolves fan, that the Thunder feast on taking the ball away and then getting out and running. Shout out, by the way, to the ESPN director zooming in on the one Denver fan in the sea of Oklahoma City blue. Williams pulls up here into the lane. He was sensational in the second quarter. Turned this game into a laugher. How about the power dunk here from Cason Wallace? Really? Get up and throw it down with the left hand. Thunder bench, love that. They got up by 25 starting the fourth quarter. SGA, and that's another thing obviously the Wolves are going to have to worry about. Drives, draws the foul. Jokic can only watch as Oklahoma City pounds the Nuggets 125-93, sending the Thunder on to the Western Conference Finals for the first time in over a decade. And Denver beaten in 7 games in the second round for the second year in a row. Of course, the Nuggets lost to the Wolves last year. So, one day off for the weary. OKC plays tomorrow night as they'll host Minnesota. This is the games we know. It's every other day, which seems crazy after the first round. We had 3 days off between some games. Now we're playing every other. The NBA, maybe they'll fix this going forward, but this is where it's at. The start times are what's more important because we're playing at 7:30 the rest of the way out. We got no more 9s or 9:30s or 8:30s. This is what we got. And ESPN and ABC have the Western Conference Final. So ESPN tomorrow night. Thursday night is Game 2. Saturday night, back in Minneapolis. That game's on WDAY. We're pretty pumped about that. Saturday night, 7:30. Game 4 will be a week from tonight, a Memorial Day night. And then Game 5, if necessary, will be back at Oklahoma City for that one. Also will be a 7:30 start. Our poll question is up this morning. You can vote at Hot Mike WDAY on who you think's going to win this series. Either the Wolves in 5, 6, or 7, or the Thunder. No sweep. I don't think that no team is going to sweep here. I think this is going to be a dynamite series. We already got a good handful of votes overwhelmingly for the Wolves, not surprisingly. OKC's really good. We'll dive into this more tomorrow on the show. Get ready for it. They split during their 4 meetings during the regular season. Minnesota had that unbelievable comeback on OKC, I want to say in early March, where they were down 20 and rallied and beat the Thunder. It was one of those typical games for the Wolves during the regular season where they looked awful and then came back and won. They had so many odd games during the year. It was late February. February 24th. It was the back end of a home and home where they played back-to-back. Remember, OKC won in Minneapolis the night before, and then they played the next night in OKC. And the Wolves came back and won that game 131-128 in overtime. 25 points they were down. Just looking at the box score of that game quick. Jaden McDaniels at 27, and they were without Julius Randle wasn't playing, and Rudy didn't play in the game. So that alone changes everything. And only had 17. I think he was benched. He was either benched or he was not on the floor at the end of that game. And the Wolves came back and won. SGA at 39. Jalen Williams at 27. I mean, it's just crazy stats there. Chet didn't play in that game, though, either. Chet Holmgren didn't play. Just something to take into account. We'll dive more into that when we have more time tomorrow on the program because it's going to be a dynamite series. So you can vote now. We'll give our poll results before we say goodbye on this Monday. Also, last night, we completed the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Congratulations to Florida. The Panthers routed Toronto 6-1. So the Final Four is set in hockey. It'll be the Panthers and the Hurricanes in the Eastern Conference Final. That'll begin tomorrow night. Again, Florida just played 7 games to get a day off, and now got to go to Raleigh to play Game 1 there. In the West, Dallas beat Winnipeg Saturday night in the game you saw on WDAY in overtime. So the President's Cup Trophy winners are out again. That streak continues in hockey. Dallas and Edmonton will play in the West Finals, which will start on Wednesday on ESPN. The winners to play for the Stanley Cup this year, the Stanley Cup Final on TNT. That's your Final Four. Edmonton is holding Canada's last chance to win the Stanley Cup. Of course, no Canadian team has won the Stanley Cup, folks, since 1993. Think about this. Of the 4 teams left, you've got a Canadian team, you've got a team that relocated from Minnesota, another team that relocated from Hartford, and the Panthers, who were created, I want to say, in 1993. That's what you got left for the Final Four in the NHL. And a streak that could continue. Either Florida wins the Cup again, state of Florida, or a warm weather team wins it again, which we've seen more than a handful of years in the NHL. And that'll resume tomorrow night. So no playoff games in the NHL or the NBA tonight. Last thing before we set up our busy Monday, recapping everything that happened in the wild world of sports yesterday, just plenty going on. The second golf major of the year wrapped, the PGA Championship being played at Quail Hollow. Our guy Tom Hoagie missed the cut by 1 shot. Had he not bogeyed the 17th hole Friday, he was playing the weekend. Had a good round, but the cut ended up being at +1. He finished at +2. As it were, it was the Scotty Scheffler show once again at a professional golf tournament. He started the day with a 2-shot lead, came out roaring, making some he made that one on the second hole yesterday. This could get ugly. This could be a snooze fest for CBS yesterday. He makes this for par at the 5th hole. All right, I turned it off. John Rahm, who we forget because he plays live golf, was making putts middle part of his round. That's a great chip there. Tapped it in for birdie. This at the 11th hole. You can see this for birdie to tie the lead. He makes that because Scheffler had backed up a couple. Now we're tied at 9 under. And then everything went haywire for Rahm on the back 9. There he makes bogey. So Scheffler is up by 1. This is fabulous out of the bunker at 14. That's it. You can't even tell me how difficult a shot that is. Had this coming back then for birdie, which he makes, and then all of a sudden, with Rahm's struggles, it goes to a 3-shot lead in the span of about 20 minutes. He made that birdie, and look out, now he's up by 4 at 16. This was Rahm at the 17th. This is when the wheels really came off. This, not great. We can all relate to this. Bounces through the green and in the water, and that sank his chances of trying to win the PGA. Scheffler had that for tap in to win, which is his 3rd major championship. He's got 2 green jackets, and now he's got a broken Wanamaker trophy. He didn't care. He's got it there after winning yesterday, which is his 3rd major championship. So he's halfway to the Slam. He's got the Masters and the PGA checked off with the U.S. Open and the Open Championship left there. I got to say, for all the drama that the networks were hoping yesterday, we didn't have any of it. Hockey, snooze fest. Basketball, snooze fest. Golf, snooze fest. Softball had it, which we'll get to in just a moment. We got a packed guest lineup for you, brought to you by Northwestern Mutual to start our week. We'll salute our best of the weekend in just a minute. Sam Herder's back with us at 9:35 as we'll go through Week 1's spotlight games in the FCS calendar for 2025. There's a heck of a way to kick off the year. Looking forward to that. Jeff Kolpack will join us at 10 o'clock. Chat some more on the Bison track dominance, which we'll show you in our best of the weekend here in a minute. A couple other topics with Jeff coming up at 10. Guy Fridley will join us at 10:35. Looking forward to our conversation with Guy, the athletic director that is at Dickinson High School. If you missed it, on Friday, I want to say, or late Thursday, Dickinson announced that they have chosen a new nickname. Of course, they're transitioning away from the one they've had for 100 years. They will be known as the Mavericks starting next fall, 25-26. How that all came about and why they chose that. We'll talk with Guy coming up at 10:35. That and a heck of a lot more here on a busy Monday morning. We're glad you're joining us and starting your week with us. We come back, we'll salute our best of the weekend from all over different areas of sports. Hot Mike on a Monday. Back after this on WDAY Extra, KSFL, KNBN, and Inforum.com. All right, we do it each and every Monday in this time slot. We salute our best of the weekend. We've done this about 6 years running on this program. We've done this segment as saluting after the Summit League Track Championship, NDSU, because they had a great weekend again. It was also a big weekend for UND out at the Summit League Track Championship in Vermilion. After plagued by rain on Friday, everything basically moved to Saturday, and the wait was worth it for a couple of specific athletes. For UND, holy cow, congratulations are in order to Jaden Keeler. Keeler here, this is the conclusion of the 5,000 meters in a crazy race. She had already won in the 10,000, comes home here with a late pass on NDSU's Reagan Baszler, and ends up taking the 5,000, winning at a time of 16 minutes and 9 seconds. She broke the Summit League championship record time and also a facility record as well by capturing that crown. She had a heck of a weekend. Also, another championship for NDSU went to Zach Ramos, who was named the track championship field MVP. He won the discus and the shot put for NDSU as the Bison men ended up finishing in second. Ramos, who transferred in from Idaho, was a Big Sky champion, now is a Summit League champion as well. So those were just a couple of the individual we wanted to feature from the weekend. South Dakota State made history. The Jackrabbit men won the cross-country championship in the fall. They won the indoor championship in the winter, and they won the outdoor championship. So they swept all three. Congratulations to the Jackrabbits. That was they made history there. The SDSU men finished 24 points ahead of the Bison. USD took third, St. Thomas, UND, ORU, and then Kansas City wrapped it up there. Is it odd that Denver doesn't have track? We can just talk about that for a second, because they don't. On the women's side, when I said same old to start our show, referring to the NDSU track team because they won a 16th outdoor championship. Annika Larson started things here, blistering in the 100 meters to win that championship. Personal best, 11.57 in that race. Then moved to the 1,500. Hillsboro's Reagan Baszler made a pass on Keeler, who we just saw win in the 5,000. She comes home, wins this race at a time of 4 minutes, 23 seconds. The Bison went 1, 3, 5, and 6 in that race. And if you follow track, that's where you get your points. It's not just winning, it's placing as well. Winning is all that Ariana Birch does in the high jump. She won this event for the second year in a row, combined with the fact that she's also won back-to-back championships in the indoor high jump. She's 4 for 4. The Bison women end up on top, 16th championship in 17 tries in the Summit League outdoor track title. Commissioner Josh Fenton giving them the trophy there late on Saturday afternoon. Birch, by the way, clearing 6 feet for the win. She tried to go a couple inches higher and couldn't clear that, but she did enough to win. And the Bison and Stevie Keller, congratulations to their entire team for another dominant weekend. We talk, football obviously gets all the headlines. Basketball gets its share as well. Track, unfortunately, it's basically this time of year when they get a chance to shine. Maybe that's on us more than anything, but that was dominance again. Congratulations And there's a few that we're going to see in a couple weeks of the regionals. Bert's got a heck of a chance, I think, to make the national tournament in that event. We'll see. But congratulations to the Bison, to the Jackrabbits. Same old teams that are on top of the Summit League. Seems like in every other sport we're talking about that. Last thing before we wrap, this is non-local, but I watched it last night, and I think we got to give this some props as well. Because I said, basketball, dud. Hockey, snooze fest. Golf, not interesting. Softball was. The opening round of the NCAA softball tournament wrapped up yesterday. And traditionally, the higher-seeded teams usually, they host and they win to move on to the super regionals. You got to win 3 games to move on. Texas A&M, out of the Southeastern Conference, the number 1 seed in this year's tournament. They were pushed to a elimination game last night against Liberty. The Liberty Flames, not necessarily a underdog by the stretch of the imagination, but they were taken at A&M. This, a 3-run home run in the top of the 6th inning to give Liberty a 6-3 lead. So now they just need 6 outs to close this thing out. A&M scored 2 in the bottom of the 6th. That's when I was watching, to make this now a 1-run game. They have 2 runners on. Bottom of the 7th, that strikeout, though, ends it and sends the Liberty Flames into the Super Regionals for the first time. It's also the first time that the number 1 overall seed does not make the Super Regional Tournament in this format, which has been going on for 20 years. That is a huge upset. In an era where, even in softball, the haves have it way more than the have-nots, right? I mean, Liberty's not necessarily a typical mid-major school because their finances are unlimited in terms of resources. That's still pretty cool to see, and that emotion you saw after they won, readily apparent. Liberty moves on. They will face Oregon. The Super Regionals are this weekend. That's best of 3. Abby Dutcher in Alabama moved on, I think, for the 17th year in a row. Bama will get Oklahoma in the Supers. They played, we showed that to you, I want to say last month. Alabama took 2 of 3, and Abby had a big part of that as well. We're going to try and see if we have time to get her on this week. It's a crazy week. That series will be in Norman starting this weekend. That's our best of the weekend. We do it each and every Monday at 9:20. We'll break. We come back. Our guy Sam Herder back with us as we look forward to the spotlight games for week 1 of the upcoming FCS season. We're under 100 days away, folks. That's coming up when Hot Mike returns after this. Back here on a Monday morning spectacular. Jeff Kolpack will join us about a half hour. Guy Fridley from Dickinson on the changing over to the Mavericks coming up in about an hour's time as well. We do it each and every Monday at 9:30. We visit with our guy Sam Herder from Hero Sports, BetMGM, as we get the lowdown on everything going on in FCS football. Last week we started our look at the top spotlight games for the FCS. We'll do it week by week as we're now under 100 days out from the start of the FCS season. For everybody else, we're 104 days out from August the 30th, which, we're wishing summer away because football is right around the corner. We're going to get to that in a second. First, there was a tweet. You saw it. I saw it yesterday. I want to show everybody else on our show today because if this doesn't tell you where everything is in FCS football, then nothing will. Elon, which has been okay, put out this tweet yesterday saying that about their offensive line. The last 2 years, they produced 2 players that have earned 6-figure Power 4 deals. Paved the way for all conference selections at running back 3 years in a row. I will open up the floor to you on what you make of this.
I don't mind it, actually. I know how it'll rub, fans or whatever the wrong way, but they're doing publicly what I've heard other coaches say that they're starting to do on the recruiting trail, and that's, lean into it a little bit of, and I still, because you hear a lot that the FCS is the new feeder program to the FBS, or it's the new JUCO. I push back on that phrasing a little bit just because, again, there's more guys, more standouts that stay than leave. And I know a lot of fans think like, well, once a guy gets good in the FCS, he's leaving.
Dunzo.
That's actually not the case. It's just but there still are a lot of good players that leave after their sophomore years. And so in that essence, it does feel like the FCS has become a developmental program for the FBS. But I think it's almost turned into a recruiting pitch for FCS coaches where, I've heard all across the country that the level of talent the FCS is getting out of high school has never been better because FBS is spending less scholarships
Correct.
on high school recruits. And so now the recruiting pitch for the FCS is, hey, we all know high school recruits, most of them, unless they're in the Dakotas or the Montana, they want to play in the FBS, right? If you're in Texas or the Carolinas, Ohio, wherever, you want to play in the FBS. But some of these guys, maybe they only get 3, 4, or 5 FBS offers. They're not getting the FBS offers they want. FCS teams can come in and say, hey, we think you can be an impact player for us within 2 years. Come here, develop for 3 years, become an FCS standout. And hey, if you love our school, you love our town, you stay here for 5 years, that's great.
Awesome. Yep.
But if you want to test the waters, now all of a sudden the 4 FBS offers have turned into 12 FBS offers because you're an FCS standout and your NIL is going to go up. So come here, develop, get on the field right away, and then you can test the waters again. You don't love that, but at the same time, it's better you lean into it a little bit, and it's better than completely ignoring it and not somehow trying to use this to your advantage of making some sort of interesting recruiting pitch to get these recruits that want to go FBS, but they end up going to the FCS.
I agree with you on the last part. When I saw it and you tweeted out, and that's where I saw it yesterday, it rubbed me the wrong way. And then I went back and looked at it and, well, if this is a way for them to either keep their players or to get players to come, you got to do what you got to do this day and age. I mean, I have less problem with it now than I did, say, 24 hours ago when I saw it. It's just this is where we're at. You tweeted it's the new age recruiting tactics. You're exactly right. This is what schools have to do to get in the ball game.
Yeah, and I think more schools are doing this like in living rooms. Or
maybe not
phones,
publicly.
whatever.
Right.
Yeah, they're just doing it publicly so everyone sees it and goes, so like you're almost advocating for your guys to leave in a sense. Like, because you don't want to totally normalize it. Like, you don't want to say, hey, you're a first-team all-conference guy, like, hop in the portal, we'll help you go wherever you want. Like, you don't want to normalize it too much. But I also know there have been some examples of a guy, for an example, let's say he was a third-team all-conference player in 2023, and he wanted to test the portal waters as a redshirt freshman, redshirt sophomore, or whatever. I know there's been examples of coaches saying, hey, stay here one more year, because instead of being a third-team all-conference FCS guy, if you stay here for one more year, you're going to be an All-American.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden your NIL deal is going to go from $60K to $500K. And that guy did decide to stay, and he did become a standout, and all of a sudden his NIL that he's getting this year is much higher than what it was last year at this time. So I know there are examples, too, of coaches saying, hey, we understand you want to leave. Wait one more year and your NIL bag is going to go up even more, which again is just so backwards of what we're used to. But if you're a coach, you kind of have to lean into it a little bit.
I've also, we didn't have a chance to talk last week. You were gone. The ACC, I think, had its spring meetings, and I believe one ACC coach told Brett McMurphy, and I saw this because we chatted about it at the end of last week, that all the players that are left available in the portal are, quote, trash. What do we make of that? Because that's not flattering for any FCS teams looking for players right now.
Yeah, it's hard to know if it's the ACC coach saying like there's no guys in there that are going to make a difference on our team.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean they won't make a difference for a MAC team or for a Sun Belt team or even an FCS team. You just never know. It's hard to put everyone into one bucket. I know and I kind of have this mindset too when I see this Big Ten guy or whatever goes to this school, like that's a splash, but at the same time he didn't play at all at that Big Ten school for maybe a reason, and he goes to the FCS and maybe they find out, okay, this guy the college speed even at the FCS level is too fast for him. There's a reason why he didn't play. Yeah. But there are some other examples of guys they didn't play just because their path to the field was blocked, and all at their FBS school, and all they need is an opportunity to get on the field, and then they flourish in the FCS because they just needed that opportunity. So I'm sure by this point, if you're adding guys And this goes for FCS to FBS guys as well. Like if you're an FCS transfer and you're landing at an FBS school right now, you're probably not going to be a starter because those spots are already filled. It's the same thing with FBS to FCS guys. A lot of those guys coming down to the FCS, any additions you see FCS teams make most likely are going to be rotational guys. Maybe they'll find a diamond in the rough, but at this point, as we're nearing summer, a lot of these guys still in the portal, they're still in the portal for a reason.
Yeah, I agree on that. I think you have to we've talked about this several times, and I've said this late on the show because the Bison added a guy from James Madison late last week, and Antoine Booth. Like, okay, again, take this with caution. Like, they're adding for depth. This is guys they hope they can play. We're not sure how good they are, and that's the best way to go about, in my opinion, on evaluating guys that are dropping down, I think, certainly from FBS to the FCS level. Two other things I want to get to before we start previewing the spotlight games. I got an email actually comes in to ask Sam, is there an update on Sac State and its application for FBS football? What do you know on that?
So ever since that report came out that they planned on, doing the application and applying for the waiver and all that, basically the process is the FBS Oversight Committee has to approve it, which is made up of FBS commissioners and ADs. But then if they approve it, it goes to the Division I Council, and then they kind of give the final stamp of approval. Since that announcement was made, or the report was made, the FBS Oversight Committee has had 2 meetings, and they have yet to discuss it. So they have yet to really vote on it or anything, and I'm sure that's probably frustrating for Sac State because they need to know pretty soon, hey, in a year and 3 months, are we playing Big Sky football or are we playing FBS independent football? Is our Olympic sports, are we in the Big Sky Conference or do we have to go to the Big West or the WAC? And so they got to know soon, ideally before July 1st. And the FBS Oversight Committee, their next meeting is early June, I want to say. And then the Division I Council meets like June 24th and 25th. That's also when the Division I Council is going to approve the 12-game FCS season. And so a part of this, of why it hasn't been brought up just yet from the FBS Oversight Committee, just could be the in-the-weeds governance structure of the NCAA. Because remember, with the FCS 12-game voting, they couldn't vote on it officially in April, but they did a straw poll vote and passed it unofficially, but they couldn't vote on it officially until May. I don't know why they couldn't approve it in April, but it had to be May. That could be the same with the FBS Oversight Committee. They might just be saying, let's talk about it in early June, approve it, not approve it, and then pass it on to the D1 Council later this month. That could be why. But I know from Sac State's perspective, they were hoping to get an answer before the end of the school year, and it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case for Sac State on whether this waiver gets approved or not.
Well, and to some extent, the Big Sky needs to know as well. Like, are you in or out? Because we need to know for our scheduling purposes what's going on.
Yeah, because you drop them out of your scheduling and you have to, rewrite the whole thing. And, I don't think the Big Sky, if they do lose Sac State, I don't think they're going to go out and try to add anyone. I don't think they have to do that. But again, from a scheduling perspective, it would be important to know pretty soon if they're going to have to adjust schedules. And
one other thing too, I got to add on the WAC stuff. I was told, and I'm sure you probably heard the same, that because once the Summit League Missouri Valley deal became official, I was told nobody from the WAC wants to make a move because they don't want to be the first to leave if there's potential money that can be gathered up there. That's what the holdup is with Utah Valley, with Utah Tech, the former Dixie State, Southern Utah. The Texas schools are being considered, and they're obviously in the WAC as well. So it's kind of whoever's going to blink first on this, and then we'll finally find out if any movement's going to happen.
Yeah, it's kind of just one big domino waiting to fall, then everything else falls into place. One team decides to go here, then another team joins. That makes 2 other teams decide to leave as well, and go somewhere else. And so the WAC always seems like it's on shaky ground, but especially now, just with so much movement happening out west, it seems like eventually that is going to hit the WAC. But like you said, it's just kind of waiting to see which team decides to first, and then I think everything else falls not into place, but everything kind of the dominoes fall from there once that first one falls.
All right, Sam, so let's talk the spotlight games for week 1. We did week 0 last week. There's not really a whole lot. That will change next year, as you mentioned, with 12 games. That's going to become, I believe, the FCS domain. We'll wait and see on that. I was going through this last night, and I shared it with you this morning. We got some dandies to start the year. There's two that pop off the page to me. The Montana State-Oregon game, because I'm really interested to see what Montana State is like, and then obviously the Sac State-SDSU game. What other ones stand out to you?
Yeah, those two will be interesting just to see, like you said, how Montana State stacks up a little bit. You don't expect them to go there and win, but how long do they stick around with Oregon and compete?
Yeah.
I mean, Idaho, it was a one-score ball game
Correct.
in the middle of the fourth quarter, and so just interested to see how Montana State looks. I think offensively they might look a little bit different with a new offensive coordinator, a new quarterback as well. But I think the Bobcats are going to be really good on the O-line, D-line, really good at running back. So they're built pretty well. So we'll see about that one. The Sac State, South Dakota State one is super interesting. That's almost one game where, again, is Sac State even going to be eligible to be preseason ranked? I don't know, because if they get approved for the FBS, they're not eligible for the playoffs, so then they won't be eligible for the media poll. But if they are eligible to be voted in the preseason top 25, I could see Sac State between 10 and 15 just with the talent they're bringing in. But it's one of those games where I almost don't want to predict when that week comes, because I don't know how good Sac State is going to be. I think they're going to be really talented, but how does that all gel? I think South Dakota State is going to be really good, but are they going to be elite? I don't know about the Jackrabbits there, and so that's a really interesting one as well. Another one as well is Idaho, Washington State.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty much Idaho versus South Dakota State 2.0 there, but I mean, it's interesting. I remember when Jason Eck left for New Mexico, I remember thinking, he's eventually going to go to the FBS, but if he would have been a bit more patient, a better job would have opened up, and then 2-3 weeks later, Washington State opens up, and it's like, oh, Eck would have been a really good candidate, for that job. But, just to see how Washington State gels, they have 20+ South Dakota State guys joining the Washington State guys. Like, how does that all gel? A lot of those South Dakota State guys are vying for starting spots, and so how does that all mesh? And Idaho, I think, landed on its feet pretty well considering the talent they left, the coaching staff that left there. They brought in an FBS transfer. I think his name is Joshua Wood, who has some FBS starting experience. So Idaho has a good quarterback there that's come in. I think Idaho should be really good at running back. Offensive line should be decent. Front seven should be decent. So that's an interesting one as well to keep an eye on. And, two teams that are really close to each other as well in Idaho, Washington State.
The other one, had USD not lost everybody, South Dakota, Iowa State would have been it's not nearly as interesting as it would have been about a month and a half ago.
Yeah, because South Dakota lost, three starting offensive linemen, 3 of them really, really good guys as well that are probably NFL draft prospects, top wide receiver, top tackler, top returning player in the secondary. And so I still think South Dakota is a top 5 team. I think Bauman and Pierre are probably the best quarterback running back duo in the FCS. But, from there, how good is this South Dakota team? Are they still the top challenger to NDSU? I've probably bumped them back from that to being preseason 4 or 5, somewhere around there. But, still, you want to see them compete pretty well. Aiden Bauman going back to Iowa State is that was so long ago that he was there, but it's still, kind of an interesting angle of him going back there. But I think anytime you have a starting quarterback coming back for South Dakota, that helps. And then, Pierre, I think, is probably the best running back in the FCS. So those are 2 good spots to start, but who's blocking for them? Who's Bauman throwing to? How good is the defense? There's a lot more questions about the Yotes now than there were 2-3 months ago.
No doubt. I would think as well, before we go, we'll know in about 10 days' time the TV lineup for the first couple weeks of the season. That game, USD, Iowa State, the UND K-State game, the Montana State, Oregon game, I don't know if they automatically get pushed to streaming. They might get picked up, by Fox or ESPN. I wouldn't surprise me on the USD and the Iowa State game, maybe UND K-State. I would imagine that's probably a Peacock only for Montana State and Oregon, but you never know. Maybe FS1. We'll see.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking maybe a Fox Sports one.
Yeah.
We'll get either South Dakota or UND, and the Fighting Hawks going to Kansas State. That's another intriguing one. I think I don't know where specifically, but I'll probably have UND in my preseason top 25. Despite not making the playoffs last year, I think they have a chance to be good offensively. I like UND's offensive line. I really like their running backs. We'll see what the quarterback situation is, but going back, I thought Ronfo actually had a pretty good year for his debut season. I thought he was pretty efficient and threw, pretty good deep ball at times. So we'll see if the San Diego State transfer will come in and take that starting spot or not. But I kind of like the momentum UND has right now, kind of like a jolt in a sense. You can kind of feel it from afar with UND. So again, similar to Montana State, Oregon, do I think UND will go into Kansas State and win? No, but do they stick around for 3 quarters, 3.5 quarters, and make it a game? I think that even when you lose to an FBS team, how you lose in a sense, I know quality losses aren't a thing, but how you look in those losses to FBS opponents, I still think can tell us a little bit about what type of team you have.
Great to see you, bud. Thanks for the time as always. We'll do this again next week, okay?
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Sam Herder joins us each and every Monday at 9:30. This time of the year, we're going through the spotlight games. You saw them there, and we'll tweet that out after the show is done to get ready for the start of the college football season. We'll break, come back, wrap up our first hour. Big second hour on tap here on a chilly Monday. Back on Hot Mic right after this. Action-packed first hour in the books. We come back. Jeff Kolpack will start hour 2. Also, Guy Fridley coming up on Dickinson, changing its high school nickname. That's coming up. And hour 2 of Hot Mic begins after this.
This is Hot Mic.
Hot Mic.
On the networks of WDAY. Here's Dom Izzo. It's that time. An author.
Offensive production, number 1. Number 2. I forgot.
Golfer.
It'd be like going on a 3-person best shot, and we were saying, Kolpack, you got to make a 25-footer every time. You wouldn't putt first. I'd have Tim putt first.
And one heck of a TV personality.
This game is for the Cooper Cup.
It's the Forum's Jeff Kolpack.
4! I should have yelled 2.
Here he is, everybody. Jeff Kolpack joins us. His appearance is brought to us by Northwestern Mutual. Joins us each and every Monday at 10 o'clock. Good to see him, man.
Good to see you. I see we got rid of the dead weight in the meteorology
It's that time.
department. Uh-oh. Hey.
We don't need it twice.
Yeah.
He only needs it once. Yes.
Yeah, we got rid of the dead weight in the meteorology department. Are you next, or where are we going? What's the station's direction here?
I don't have any. I can't comment on that, but
I was just upstairs. I applied for the opening.
Did you now?
He said you could apply.
We have video of you actually doing on the green screen there for our bracketology show a few years back. I believe Sam actually, that would have been the Getzinger had been here like 3 months, and he had no idea.
I know,
what
he's
we were
like,
doing.
who is this guy?
We roped Sam
what's
into
up
that.
with what's going on upstairs
I forgot
here?
that. That's pretty good. I have a couple things I want to get to, and then later in the segment, I want to do a big J journalism question with you because you posted something that I want to talk about later in the show. Track did it again. No surprise, Stevie Keller's team on the women's side. The men ended up finishing in second. Because Carbon Cop, because I know you wrote the story on softball, which I want to get to as well. But if there's one thing that for Bison Athletics they can hang their hat on, track is pretty much going to win the Summit League championship every year.
Well, it's the first time the men had won it
in a while.
In 14 years.
In a while. Yep.
So at some point, you just can't break through every year. Just great recruiting. I mean, Stevie Keller and his staff, they find multi-sport athletes, and when they come here, all of a sudden they're concentrating on one thing, and they find good athletes and train them and develop them. And it's just great recruiting. I started with Don Larson. He'd go find some athlete in Stephen, Minnesota, and turn him into a multi, or decathlon, if you will. And so I just that's where it starts. It's not rocket science, but it's hard to do.
I look at a couple of years ago, Jacob Levine from Kenmare, North Dakota, just never finished, never won anything in high school.
Great story.
Right?
Yeah.
I think his highest finish was like third. And then he becomes NDSU's first individual on the male side to make the NCAA track championships. Just phenomenal. Like, that's the kind of athletes they have found and harvested to become All-Americans.
But they not only recruit these athletic kids, but they got to be tough, too.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you're training up here in the Northland, and you don't have any really outdoor meets to speak of other than a couple invites, whatever.
Right.
You can't bring good teams in here, and they just continue and continue, and it just doesn't stop.
And they're from, like you mentioned, from Mayville, North Dakota, from Kenmare, from not big populous areas that they're finding dynamite. Winemere, they got another couple on there. They're just, that's what they do, and they're really, really good. And every year they're. I mean, we did the story last year on Nell Graham. Nell Graham wasn't an outstanding high school athlete, ends up becoming an All-American here.
And I would argue that both the men's and women's golf programs are up there, too, every year, and they're doing it again with kids in the Midwest. They continually to threaten for a title every year in the summit. That's all you can ask. I mean, what were they, 3 shots back on the men's side this year? Had a chance to win it. You're getting kids, Ian Simmons from Moorhead. You just and that's good recruiting. And, again, you're bringing kids in where – you're not playing outdoor meets in Fargo, North Dakota. You're on the road every time. Granted, they go good places.
Yeah, that's right.
Which good for them.
Absolutely.
This year what did they play? Women went to Hawaii.
Yep.
The men played Bandon Dunes in Oregon, one of the great places in America.
And they played Bethpage as well, I believe. They did that too. So that's not where the Ryder Cup's going to be this fall. So they were all right on that. Bison baseball wrapped up the regular season. They finally played a game on Saturday. They beat Omaha. They're going to be the 2 seed. They'll play Omaha in Omaha to start the Summer League baseball tournament.
And no reason they can't win that tournament. And you brought that up when they were on a 7-game losing streak, and I said, well, it's baseball. Just hold on here because it ebbs and flows. And so maybe they're peaking. We'll see.
Oral Roberts and South Dakota State are the other team. St. Thomas won the league for the 2nd year in a row, and I was visiting with a couple of the Bison baseball players. I was up there last week talking for a story I'm working on this week, and I asked them, like, especially the Minnesota guys, how good is St. Thomas? And they both shook their head like, they're going to be here. That's going to be another one of the teams we're talking. Because I looked at it, Jeff. I'm going to do something on this maybe later in the week because now the transition is done, right? The 4 years are done. That they end up winning a couple of baseball titles. They got progressively better in softball. We know what they did in men's basketball. We saw what they did in women's basketball. Yep. They're coming, man.
They are.
Once it starts next year, it is game on.
Yeah, wait till they build a baseball facility.
Correct.
I mean, I went on a recruiting visit with my sons a few years ago to St. Thomas, and they were okay.
That was the one thing the players told me was about facility-wise. Like, get that, look out.
They were okay. Yep. Granted, and the schools has some really cool parts to it, but once you build a nice facility there, wow, look out.
I mean, we're going to see it. Obviously, their brand new $100 million. I had Johnny Tower on the show last week. $100 million football or basketball and hockey arenas opening in October.
They're going to the Big East, aren't they?
Not yet. I mean, and if that ends up happening, great. But until then, it's a Summit League issue, and they are going to be an issue for upsetting that apple cart that we're used to seeing North Dakota State, South Dakota State on top in most sports.
I got an idea. So the MIAC kicked them out. We can kick them out. It's been done before.
Summit League needs members, man. They're not kicking,
come on.
They're not kicking anybody out. They need as many members as they can possibly get right now. That's not
Utah Valley, Dixie State. We'll trade for
that is such a lopsided trade. That's a terrible trade. I would not make that one. I was interested that Denver and Omaha do not have men's track. Denver doesn't have track at all. You've written stories about that. Track isn't that expensive. It's just odd to me that some schools don't have a track program,
especially in Colorado where track is big.
Yeah. Now, granted, they have lacrosse.
Do they have cross country?
I don't know about
that.
How
can you not have cross country in Denver?
Which, again, that would seem rather obvious on that, but that struck me sideways. We teased it last week. I wanted to pay it off here on this before we break. You visited with Darren Mueller, Bison softball coach, late last week on I would say, struggles that softball's had since basically the pandemic. 2019 was the last time the Bison softball team went to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, and he was very forthright and forthcoming, like you would expect him. And he goes, I understand. People care, and they care about the program, and they got to do better. He wants to get the collective going. I mean, and that's probably the next answer. These other programs have caught up and passed them. Yep. I mean, facility-wise, it used to be a time when NDSU would be, I think, the only school going to California and getting kids, which California is the greatest softball in the universe out there with high school kids and amateur summer
You're
ball
right.
stuff.
How often they play.
Although
They
Nebraska's getting a lot better.
Yeah.
Darren pointed that out,
Yeah.
that Nebraska's
Well,
going to be a hot recruiting area.
Best player in the country is Jordy Ball. She's from Omaha.
Yeah.
And she plays
Came
now,
back home.
She
Yeah.
plays for the Huskers now. She's really good. So
And Omaha's keeping these good Nebraska players around, and they're close to home. So they got to have the answer, and maybe the collective and getting that going is something that would be the answer. The facility's nice. They're Elson Park.
Well,
turf.
They don't lack for that.
But no other programs, UND has a turf field.
Right. UND's one is really nice. The players is the biggest thing on that. I know he mentioned it a couple times in your story about getting older, which they have not
Which they
been.
will be next year.
I'm interested in this because this has gone the opposite way of what women's basketball. Women's basketball wasn't very good, and now it's on an upward trajectory. This past weekend, you could staple yourself to the couch knowing the Bison softball team was going to be playing in the regional, be watching, winning a game, winning two, maybe to have a chance to advance to the supers. And it's been now 6 years since it happened. I don't.
Yeah, well,
do you feel like got caught like just cement-footed here? Like what happened after the pandemic? Because he mentioned it that he saw something happen in there after that.
Yeah, I don't think he could really put his finger on it, is what I gathered. But it's also the changing landscape of the athletics in Power 4. With the money in the Power 4 programs, and now softball, fast pitch, has money at the Power 4 level, and he's going to change his scheduling philosophy. In the past, the Bison would always compete, if not beat them.
They would play everybody.
Yep.
And I've seen that the last couple of years they've done that and got beat up.
No,
and
this
that doesn't
year,
help.
right, they were 1-9 against the Power 4, and
help.
when you look at our losing record, that doesn't help. So maybe he's talking about changing his scheduling philosophy, like I said. I mean, it's about pitching. Fast pitch is a pitcher's game, and the pitcher at Texas Tech apparently is making $1.2 million. These pitchers are six figures at that level. That's pretty hard to compete. Now, in the way back era, say Lindsey Graham, the great pitcher they had from Montana, she probably doesn't come mid-major anymore.
Whitney Johnson doesn't come here probably
She
anymore.
doesn't come mid-major either.
She was dynamite. I don't see her coming.
Now
here,
you're going to Power 4 as maybe the number 2 or 3, making $200,000 a year.
And that's just it doesn't get the amount of attention that the other sports do. But why wouldn't it? Why wouldn't they be in the same boat that basketball is that we talk about all the time? That's the same deal. It's just I think they can still find players to be competitive. That's the thing. If they were finishing second, Jeff, I think we'd have a different conversation. They're finishing 5th or 6th or 7th. That's where I think
UND is doing it. Omaha's doing it.
Right.
South Dakota State's doing it.
That to me is where I think, at least how I sit on it, that doesn't sit well. Like, okay, why are they where they're at? And I'm intrigued to see. The collective part is great, but we've already seen Jay Bartley, that is, who runs the Green and Gold, struggle to get money for football. I don't know how you're gonna do that to get for softball.
Well, no, I think Darren's taking matters in his own hands. He's doing meetings himself.
No,
I would.
Yeah.
Any Olympic sport at NDSU, I would be one of my priorities. Is I would meet with any booster, donor, anybody who likes the program, and you know who they are. You see them at games and saying, "Hey, appreciate your support." I don't think that Jay's job is football, men's basketball and women's basketball.
No,
that's you can't do everything. You can't.
Then you need somebody to run that for those, though, I think. Being under that umbrella, I think, helps. Don't you? That you're under that Green and Gold collective deal.
Because
I think
it's made an impact in football.
Correct.
And you see that.
I think if you're attached to that helps. And if people were on social media that are on social media this past few days, you saw Cole Payton tweeting about it. Bryce Lance was out this weekend. Avery Coonan was out this weekend saying, thanks for being a part of it. If you want to get involved, this is where you got to go.
Well done spots, too, I'll say. Who's ever doing those, well done.
Bryce actually had a commercial on over the weekend, if you saw that, for the North Dakota National Guard. Yeah, Bryce Lance was right square forward in that. Like, he was the center star of that commercial.
And what a great entity to be a spokesman for, the National Guard.
So that's coming. But that, to me, my last point on this, if you're under that umbrella, and I appreciate Darren willing to do that, but if you're tied with that, I think there's some more weight to it because people know at least what that is now. If you're just out there on your own, that might be a difficult road to hoe.
Yeah, I think the model is working at NDSU and certainly football. The model is working.
And I think it's worked for basketball as well.
Yep.
I think
men and women.
I think it's certainly, they kept Avery Coonan and Jossie Schiller coming here. Big reason why the collective was able to make that happen, from what I was told. You can't dispute that. I want to break. We come back. I want to talk about a story that happened over the weekend for the PGA Championship. Kolpack tweeted about it, caught my interest. We're going to talk about that on the world of reporting, which you
journalism.
do. It's journalism with a big J.
I didn't bet on journalism.
You blew it on that. Hot Mike, back after this. All right, back here with Jeff Kolpack. His appearance is brought to us by Northwestern Mutual. All right, buddy boy. I didn't see this story until you tweeted about it yesterday. Off Announcing reported this from the PGA Championship this weekend at Quail Hollow. Shane Lowry, who always runs a little bit hot anyway, I think he got caught with a couple of F-bombs, hot mic'd as well, says upset with ESPN reporter during the PGA Championship. The backstory on this is he was upset with an on-course reporter from ESPN. The golf rules allow for free relief if a player ends up in his own pitch mark, but not anyone else's. When Lowry was talking to a rules official about whether he was entitled to relief, an ESPN reporter said the pitch mark was not Lowry's. That unprompted input frustrated the golfer. You tweeted yesterday, Lowry is right. I've been at a couple basketball games where score was in dispute, was asked what score I have, and I was like, that's not my job to be part of the outcome. Okay. I have done this because I've had people come over to me. I do keep score. That's how I keep score for I do it for baseball and I do it for basketball. That's how I stay my stats. And I've had people come over. We had it a couple of years ago because NDSU's score kept having an issue, and they came over and like, this is the score of the game. If you're reporting, because you've done on-course reporting for us, is it not your job to tell what's going on? Like, that's not your pitch mark. That's ours.
It's not my job.
I disagree with that. If you're an on-course reporter, it is your job.
No, you're making a difference in the outcome of this tournament or game or whatever. It is not your job to volunteer and say, no, this is not right. I mean, that is not your job.
I disagree with that because that's not right. He's taking advantage of somebody else's ball mark, though, right?
That's the rules. That's the rules official's job. It's his job to be. Golf is a gentleman's game.
So you're saying if you were in that position,
I wouldn't say a word. Absolutely not.
Really?
No.
I disagree.
Absolutely not.
I would definitely say.
And again, I've been in.
I would have done that.
I've been at a couple high school basketball games where, you know how the score gets screwed up sometimes.
It happened at the Shack not that long ago.
Ref, somebody came over and go, "What do you have?" I'm going, "Hey, I'm staying out of this, man. I'm not going to be part of the story." Because what if the game ends up 59-58, and because your 2 points who you had that didn't, then how do you write that as you being part of the story? How do you write that?
I would say then, first off, they got it wrong. Like, they had it messed up. They came to me. I'm going to tell you exactly what I have.
But then all of a sudden the story is a column and it's first person. It's not.
You're reporting on it, though. That's what I'm saying. If you're an on-course reporter, which you
are
have been,
the neutral presence.
But if you're there,
you are the objective neutral presence.
I disagree with that. If you're there and see it happen.
Do I need to take you back to Journalism 101?
No, I'm telling because this is part of it. If you see it happen, you have to report on it. I'm not going to see a fire.
I just wrote about this.
You know what I mean? If I just see somebody start a fire, I'm like, well, I'm not going to report it, but I saw the guy start it. I'm inserting myself into the story? What?
Yes, you are.
But that's baloney.
It's not.
If I see somebody cause an accident, right? If a guy blows through a red light and I saw it, right?
But
I'm not going to tell.
We're talking a game here.
No, we're not. We're talking reporting. We're talking journalism.
Yes.
That's what we're talking about. If I'm reporting on something, I saw that. You're not in that ball mark. That's somebody else's. Absolutely, you have to report that. I would be upset with myself knowing I didn't say anything and I could have. That would haunt me. I'm going to be honest with you. That would not sit well with me on that.
On the ball mark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would not. And if I had the score, because the officials came over to me, I forget what game it was.
I'm not saying you can't report on it. You can say ESPN or whoever, say the forum. I'll use the forum if I'm reporting that. The rule was established or was dictated to be this, even though you can say the forum in its reporting saw otherwise, you can say that. I'm not saying you can't report on it. I'm saying you can't interject yourself into the outcome of that ruling.
I disagree. I think if
you could still report on it, you could say the forum in its reporting.
I would think it'd be negligent not to report on it, I guess that's what I interpreted from your tweet, is not to report on it. Are you saying that's not accurate? You would report on it?
No, well, maybe I probably could have been.
I'm
more,
not trying to get you on a gotcha. I'm just asking your specifics.
I guess in clarity, I wouldn't have interjected myself. That's what I should have said.
Okay. But you'd still report on it, though, in terms of the entity.
If I'm 100% sure that that's what I saw.
Because Lowry was bent out of shape that the ESPN guy said
he shouldn't have been part of the story.
Yeah, I disagree.
Or she, whoever it was.
I disagree with that. I think if you see it happening, you gotta blow the whistle on that. You know what I mean?
This is not going to stop here, is it?
Well, I mean, I was curious. This is a conversation
to be
you and I would have.
continued in the pregame show next year at the Citadel.
I appreciate the fact we can have this conversation and not have anything spill over.
It's
on
good.
It. I would tell you that if I saw it, right, and I'm the on-course reporter, let's go out to Dom Izzo with the 17th hole. All right, well, Jeff Kolpack's ball landed in a different ball mark, and that's not his spot.
I'm on hole 18 at Moorhead Country Club, final round of the Red River Am. I'm covering Nate DeZiel as he's trying to close in on a finisher. Well, he's in pro now, but whoever. And say I'm closing in. And the same issue came up. I would say, on the air, I would say, well, Dom, the ruling is this. My interpretation, what I saw, may be otherwise, but this is the ruling.
That's perfect. That would be, then you're doing your job, in my opinion.
But I didn't interject myself into the ruling. I didn't go up to the rules official and go, I would not go up to the rules official and go, hey, this is what I saw.
Yeah,
I would not do that.
See, though, that's apples and oranges. Like, I'm not, right, I'm not going over to them to stop it or to stop the game and say, wait a minute.
But that's what this guy did. He went up and said, he interjected himself and went up and said, no, that wasn't right. This is what I saw. He or she should not be doing that.
So it was just that the ESPN guy was a bit too in there involved when he asked to be, and that's what annoyed me a lot, Lowry said to the Irish Independent. I was just asking the referee, and the ESPN guy comes straight over, and he's like, that's not your pitch mark. And I'm like, that's not for you to talk about. That's for me to call a rules official and decide what happens. I just said the rules official. What happens to the guy at 7:10 who's not on ESPN Live? I guarantee you he's down there arguing that's his pitch mark.
And again, I'll go back to my tweet. It's no different than the ref coming over to me as a reporter and going, what score do you have? I'm not going there.
See, I've had it happen twice over in college games. I've had over what is the score, and then how many fouls do you have on this guy? And I've answered that both times. Well, we've been on the air because my mic is hot, as it is all the time. And I said, well, this guy, I've got him for 4. Or I've got him, he's
why do they think you're reliable?
They see me with a scorebook. They think, and I'm calling the game.
There's an official score for a reason. That person is named official score.
Yep. I wanted to ask
whether it's right or wrong, or that is the official score.
By the way,
you are not the official score.
No, but I am official because I'm keeping track for myself and the broadcast. Like I've had it where I've had to tell our truck that, hey, the score is this. That's not up. That's not correct here in.
You have McFeely on tomorrow, right?
I do.
You have any other writers or reporters on this week? Ask them. I'd be curious to see.
I have a couple others. Yeah. Okay. I'll go the.
Do I have to school everybody in this company?
By the way, Lowry hit his next shot in the bunker after that.
Oh, I know. He let it affect him.
You can't do that, right? Yeah. I get it. If to your point and to full extent of this for full disclosure, if I'm out there and I'm advertising it, then no, I totally agree with you on that.
But that's what this person did.
But I would say you still have to, if you see it, you have to report it. That's where I'm at. I don't know if I'm out there waving my arms like, hey, wait a minute.
Well,
Lowry.
That's what
it certainly sounds like that.
So now you're coming over to my side a little bit.
If that's how it went down.
Right.
That's how you're saying it went down.
And even if somebody would have asked the reporter, I still don't think he or she should be part of the outcome.
Yeah. I'm going to agree to disagree on that one.
Okay.
I got an email in to ask you, not everything. That's the whole point that Lowry's making, Eric, is not everybody is on camera at like 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yep.
This was a featured group. That's why they had a reporter on that. Email comes in, Jeff, how impressed should we be for Bison football on the Bison have added 5 FBS transfers over the last couple of weeks?
Seems good. We'll see. I don't get all excited about this. They're unproven transfers by and large, unproven.
A lot of them have not played or barely played at the previous stops.
I'm just going to say I don't know, and I'm not going to – I'll tell you maybe in the middle of September if they're making any sort of difference.
I'll go earlier than that. I'll say fall camp. If we see guys that are in the –
Like I saw Money Mitchell a couple runs in the spring event. I go, whoa, okay. There's something there.
Yeah, running back room is interesting now because we're going to have DJ Scott on later this week, who's the Kennesaw State transfer of where – it's not a fair trade. You're losing Marty Brown to plug this guy in. That's not apples to apples kind of deal there. But I'm intrigued now. If you think Barika's number 1, Owen Johnson's going to be in the mix. You'd have to think this guy from Kennesaw is there. I think Money certainly is going to be in there.
I think Money has some Marty Brown look to him, some juke, some strength.
They have Barry Penu, his younger brother. They transferred in. As well. I'll be intrigued to see how that Polisic wanted more running backs. Well, how often did he hammer that about us when we were talking during fall camp? We want more guys back there. That will be something to watch.
Yeah, once again, Tim, he goes, "This is what we're going to do," and he did it.
He did it.
Yeah,
exactly
he just keeps continually backing up the talk.
Yep. And we got to go here. It's flashy. You see a guy from Minnesota or James Madison that are coming in, or Arizona State. Again, I would caution on that they're adding them, and Grant Olson said this to me on the show last week or 2 weeks ago when he was on. Yeah, we're adding these guys because we think they can play, but we got to be judicious about this, about how quickly they can see the field.
So my journalism professor, a woman named Lou Richardson, who was just fantastic, she's gonna be calling you in the next day or two.
Absolutely.
And giving you
I'm all aware.
Giving you a little journalism principles of journalism.
I'm more than willing to have the conversation. I'm glad
she will set you straight.
Thank you for having the
set me straight.
Thank you for having the conversation with me this morning. I appreciate it. Jeff Kolpack joins us each and every Monday. His appearance is brought to us by Northwestern Mutual. We'll break. We come back. Dickinson AD Guy Fridley will join us as they will be now known as the Mavericks. That's coming up when Hot Mike returns on a Monday morning. We're back after this. Welcome back, everybody. Monday show, final half hour. Rolls on here on an overcast and gloomy kind of Monday, which for our next guest and many ADs around the state, they're just keeping their fingers crossed after what's been actually a pretty nice spring. Now we're down to the final 2 weeks of it and trying to get everything done. We got region tournaments going on across the state in baseball, softball. The state track meet is coming up later this week and just trying to get everything done. Guy Fridley joins us from Dickinson, athletic director out there after a pretty monumental news that came out late last week. We were visiting off air. Are you just glued to your weather app now for the last couple of days of trying to get everything done?
Of course. What AD isn't, in any time of the year, but especially now with postseason coming up. And we've been fortunate, like you said, all spring long and pretty much all winter long, not have to postpone, cancel anything. And boom, here we are. Yeah. Tournament time is coming up in the spring where you really can't push them. So we got to get in what we can get in and try to adjust on the fly. And I wish we weren't talking about that, but when you start getting 5 inches of rain last week and then another 2 inches this week, it's going to be a challenge. But our job is to get it in for kids and provide opportunity for kids, and that's what we're going to do at our best ability.
I don't know if I've shared my idea on this. I've shared it with almost every other AD, so you got to bear with me. Can we move the season back a couple weeks? Can we space it out where not everything is the same weekend and we don't have to worry about this? Can we get some traction on that? Can you help me on this?
Yeah, being on the activities board for 4 years, you kind of learn the processes of why we have to do some things and why they are not spread out. It comes with availability of facilities as well. We got baseball and softball, and then you start getting Legion baseball into things. And in golf, you start getting the summertime. You take away from those, I would say those courses that have, those adult leagues that you get into. You can't mess with those adult leagues, Dom, or you're going to be in trouble. So, but yeah, it went. We talked about it several times on the high school activity side, and there's some challenges that come with both sides of it, obviously.
You had some news over the last little bit. So for people that don't follow on this side of the state, Guy, how early in the process or how long ago did this process start about transitioning to a new nickname?
Well, Dom, it's been I would say it's been contentious for many years, for 20 some years. I want to say several years ago, 20 some years, I think it was in the late 90s. There was a group that was changing it, and our school board got recalled because of the change. And so it's been a sense of division a little bit for many years, and it's been just the Band-Aid's been hanging there for a while, and it hasn't went without some contentious conversations, some deep conversations on what we're doing and where we need to go to bring that unity back. As you know, Dom, a mascot or a nickname is supposed to bring unity to your school, and when you start seeing some division and breaking away from that unity, that's difficult. You think about taking opportunities away from kids and not having that unity involved and that pride. I think it's time to have that deeper discussion. We've had that here in the past probably 6 to 8 months.
Did you hear or feel that students were either targeted or people were upset with it when your team would go on the road anywhere?
Well, yeah, I would say most definitely. I think anytime we make a decision on a big decision like this, it doesn't go lightly. And I think the cornerstone of our decision that we made is our kids were losing out on opportunities because of our mascot nickname. Our kids would go outside this border and they'd lose out on opportunities. And I think if you go ask anybody, Dom, if what's more important when you ask yourself, keeping a name and keeping our students from opportunities, or changing a name and giving our kids boundless opportunities. And if you put kids in the forefront of decisions, and that's our job as leaders and school district administrators, we want our kids to have just the boundless opportunities, and we're getting limited by who we are outside of our state. And we just couldn't look past that anymore. And I felt, and we felt as a district that we got to really consider a changing name so our kids aren't held back and losing those opportunities that every other kid in the other state is getting.
I feel like I've done nickname stories far too often in this state. What was the pushback from, I will say, and this is my words, Guy, the old guard, on saying why we don't want to change? It's been our nickname for 100 years. What kind of pushback did you get?
Yeah, it has been for 100 years. And we understand that for many, the midget mascot deeply rooted in tradition and pride. I myself, both my parents graduated and I have a daughter graduated. They're all Dickinson High School midgets. Don, you can think about when we were in high school and you're not in high school, some words that have changed over time. Yep. The word midget has changed over time. We can think back on some of the things that we talked about and said when we were in high school, like, holy cow, I can't believe we even talked about that. And we're getting to that point with the word midget too. And obviously we have those deep-rooted Dickinson High School midget families and traditionalists that we hear. We hear it, and we're not going to go away from our tradition and pride that who we were for 100 years. We're not going to forget about it. We're going to honor it. We're going to make sure that we take care of those people as well. And we're fortunate enough that we had a bond referendum pass here for a new academic wing and commons area. You're going to see that pride, that Dickinson High School midget pride, and that tradition within our hallways. How that will be, we're not sure, but we're going to keep. We're going to remind people who we were. We're not going to bury that tradition and that pride that we had for 100 years here in Dickinson.
Doing this is not a cheap endeavor in terms of you got to rebrand everything. How does that get paid for? I guess I'll just ask plainly.
Yeah, we know it's been a sign of contentious for 20 some years. And, as an AD, I got to look at budget, be conscious of our budget and what could happen 5, 10 years down the road. Like it or not, I made a decision several years ago that we were going to start slowly moving away from midgets on our uniforms to be prepared for this day. So it isn't a big cost prohibition for us. And so if you look at our uniforms, a lot of our uniforms have Dickinson across, or we use our D font that we have. We do still have some of our uniforms that have midgets on. That's who we are. We have pride in that. But there's been some things that we've been strategic about, or I've been strategic about, that this day could come. And so obviously it's not going to happen in 1 year, Dom. I don't think that's realistic, financially, or we don't want to put that on our district at all, that we're going to turn that page and you're going to see everybody outfitted in Mavericks uniforms. That's not going to happen, and it's just not possible. It's going to be a 3 to 4 year process until you see everybody down the road outfitted in our Mavericks uniforms.
So Mavericks ends up winning the vote. Give us the behind the scenes on who voted and why this one won out.
Yeah, so it was a process, and initially we had our community, anybody. I mean, Dom, you could have submitted a mascot idea.
I had a couple for you.
We would have taken them in, and we had roughly over 850 submissions for different mascots. Now, some of those were doubled, tripled up, and so on. But we had over 850 submissions.
Holy cow!
And then those submissions went on to our leadership group, our coaches leadership, and our athlete leadership teams. Those two groups met together and took it down to about five mascots they felt were really good in their eyes. And then after that, we presented it to a group of about 15 people that were student athletes, community members, alumni, a teacher on staff up here that got together and took it down to the final two that we had, which was Mavericks and Defenders. And then our students across the districts in grades 5 through 12 voted on Thursday on what they felt would give us the best representation of who we are. And Mavericks won out to it with that vote with our students, like I said, grades 5 through 12.
Was the orange and black a non-starter? Like we're still going to keep that. We're just going to tailor it to whatever the nickname is going to be.
Yeah, definitely. The orange and black was really a non-negotiable for us, and Dom, we're really going to streamline our orange into an orange that kind of differentiates ourselves a little bit. If you walk into our gymnasium, you'll see 8 different shades of orange, from international orange to deep burnt orange to everything in between. And so we're moving forward with more of a desert orange type color that we have, and just go with one. Just like in the past, we had like the font, the D you see on my shirt. We had about 5 different fonts going around. We had an Old English D. We had another different Old English D.
I remember that one. Yeah. Yep.
And so several years ago, we decided we need represented in one font, and we did that. And now we're going to go forward and not have the rainbow of shades of orange in our gymnasium. We're going to go with one orange.
All right, so it's been out for a couple days. What was the weekend like? What, you went everywhere, I'm sure. What was the reaction that you got from people out and about?
Well, excitement, I would say. I think there's a lot of excitement with our students, and our district sent out a video when we made announcements. We shared it with all of our district at 2:00 on Friday, and we took different reactions from our students. And obviously the elementary age, you see them jumping up and down and excited. High school kids don't get excited much for that, but there was a lot of excitement. I have I have a 6th grader in my household and a sophomore, and my sophomore doesn't get too excited about a lot of things. My 6th grader gets excited about a lot of things. And so, but I would say throughout the community, the texts I receive and different things was excited that we have a nickname. The process is over. We can move on and turn the page and start another 100-year tradition here at Dickinson High School. Can
you give us some that were left on the chopping block? Others that maybe never got to the light of day, nickname-wise, that you heard?
God, there was many of them from Diamondbacks to Dukes to Ducks to Raptors to, the list goes on to Lynx. The list goes on of how many names there were. And Dom, throughout the process, it was pretty cool. The submissions that we got from our community, we had, it looked like probably a 5-6-year-old kid that sent in a mascot idea, and he or she drew out the mascot.
Okay.
What it looked like. So it was pretty cool process to see how many people are engaged, how many took into what we were doing and ran with it. It was a fun process.
Last thing before I let you go, just the emotion of having this over and done with, this part of it. I know you got more, obviously the heavy liftings to come, but this part being done, how big of a weight is that off the shoulders now?
Well, I don't want to call it a weight, but it's good to get it passed. We obviously, as you know, when change is hard, and
No doubt.
change is easy, but making change for what's best for your students at the current moment is what you have to do. And obviously, we're excited for the future. We're excited for the next 100 years of Dickinson High School. But again, we want to make sure that we honor our past and who we were. And to answer your question, I was ready for it to be over with. I was ready for Monday morning today, and to move forward and excited, like I said, about the next 100 years for Dickinson.
I really appreciate you doing this, bud. I know you're a busy man this time of year. Thanks so much for doing this. And we got the best-looking Fridley back on WDAY airwaves, so I always appreciate that. Be well. Have a great summer. We'll talk again down the road, okay?
All right. Appreciate you.
Guy Fridley joining us, Dickinson Athletic Director, here this morning on the news that the high school in Dickinson will have a new nickname and logo. Eric, bring that up again when you have a second. I like it. There's going to be a couple other secondary ones that they will announce in the coming months, but it's sharp. Guy mentioned they're going to change the orange as well. I think everybody knows the Dickinson is the bright. Well, they have 8 different colors, but the bright orange we associate with Dickinson school colors. Maverick, no one else has that nickname in the state. So at least let's go there to start. At least they didn't copy it. Now, I had heard Raptors had some momentum, which obviously for the dinosaur findings in that part of the state, the fossils that have been found out there, that would have, to me, because my son is obsessed with dinosaurs right now, do it. Because there's another one that's not that's unique to the area, right? It's special for that part of North Dakota. I thought that would have been a cool choice. They decided to go with Mavericks. It's better than Defenders. Defenders stinks. I'm going to tell you that right now. With no apologies to the UFL team, I think it's the DC Defenders, whatever they are. That stinks. This is good to go. And it's well past time. I said it when the story came out in March that they were going to do this. I did not refer to them by their nickname anytime I broadcasted a game. I wasn't going to do that. If I was going to take heat for it, then I would fall on that sword. That's not what I was not going to do that. And thankfully, it's going to be retired, and we've got a new one moving forward. We appreciate Guy giving us a few minutes to chat about it this morning. We'll take our final break. We'll come back. We'll get you ready for a big sports Monday. We got no NHL or NBA playoffs. That doesn't mean there's a lack of things going on tonight. We'll tell you about that. We wrap up the show right after this. All right, wrapping things up here on a busy Monday. Don't forget, Wednesday, North Dakota State men's basketball head coach Dave Richmond will join us in studio for about an hour. We're going to chat about the offseason and the additions to the roster, the comings and goings. It's coming up Wednesday morning at 10. Email comes and going to our conversation with Kolpack we had. Kolpack is right. Journalism 101. You don't inject yourself into the story. Different than your analogy of reporting a crime that you see starting a fire. That's our civic duty. Different than a sporting event that it has its own officials watching for rules infractions. I get it, but again, if I see something and I'm working, you have to report that. That would be, I'd be failing in my job to not report if I see that. And if I've asked about it, I'm going to say it. Now, interjecting oneself like the ESPN guy allegedly did, that's different. I'm not up there standing up and down saying, come talk to me. That's not, I don't agree with that. That would be not my line of thinking on that. Appreciate that conversation we had with Jeff earlier in the show. Our poll question going back to the top of the show. Now we know the Thunder and the Wolves are set to face each other in the Western Conference Finals. Who's going to win? How many games? It's come down from the preposterous number it was earlier. We're at 68% say Wolves in 5, 6, or 7. I got a new Wolves shirt I got to go get later today. Excited about that. I'm full on the bandwagon. I'm just going to tell you that right now. This is a 7-game series. I believe so. These are the two best teams in the West. You're hard-pressed to know that ESPN would acknowledge Minnesota, but they are. Think of the 4 we got left. You could have a Knicks-Wolves final. Let's go. Knicks-Thunder, which is what ABC's hoping for. Pacers-Wolves. Pacers-Thunder. I'm not sure what ABC would like least out of those. Out of the Pacers-Wolves, Pacers-Thunder. under no circumstances ABC want Indiana in the final. I can tell you that right now. The Knicks are there. They want New York. No doubt about it. Let's do some What to Watch before we get out of here. What to Watch brought to you by Northwestern Mutual. We got Twins coming up against the Guardians. Bailey Ober starting tonight, 6:30 on Twins.tv for that one as they try to start a new win streak. You can see Paige Becker's play tonight. The Dallas Wings taking on the Seattle Storm. Lynx had a good weekend to start the WNBA season. 7 o'clock tonight on NBA TV. And we got the fourth round. This is the semifinals of the NCAA Women's Golf Finals. 5 o'clock on the Golf Channel, leading to the championship coming up on Wednesday. It's some good stuff. That's match play that gets going here today. We got to roll. Our thanks to Sam Herder, to Jeff Kolpack, and Guy Fridley. If you missed any of the show, you can podcast it later today at Inforum.com. You can watch a full replay on WDAY+. Stay dry out there, everybody. Hopefully we get some T-ball in tonight. We'll see you back here tomorrow on Hot Mic on WDAY Extra, KSFL, KMBN, and Inforum.com.